Hey there, everybody. It's your pal Choppadong, and it's NFL season time. Week one's right around the corner, and we're going to start talking box checkers here next week. I'm waiting on a couple of things to finalize inside the new and improved NFL research station here at dfsarmy.com, and I'm going to give you the hyper simplified way to trim a player pool for cash games and league play or hybrid lineups, if you want to call them that. We're going to talk some on-slot stacking. We're also going to talk a little bit of sports betting. We're going to talk a little bit of teasers because those are my favorite way to play some. For some reason, I have no idea. I didn't know what they were a year and a half ago, but I've done a ton of research on basic teasers and the key numbers that you're pushing those spreads through to change the lines and create 2 and 3 leg parlays, where if you're on the right websites, you can do this blindly and show profit over time. Now, we only get 17 weeks in an NFL season, so it's not like this is something that can't go on a losing streak for a year or two or whatever, but back tested over 10 plus years, this system works. That's all I care about. I want to take the guesswork out of it. I want to take the overthinking, the over-analysis out of it. If you're like me, you want to become a VIP at dfsarmy.com. Use the coupon code DFSARMY and jump in here today with a 10% off discount and get set up to watch how this unfolds. I want to show you how simple this is, because I also take that hyper-simplified approach into our domination station optimizer, which is included in memberships, if you will. We don't add on some extra fee and tell you we gave you some discount or some crap and nickel and dime you like that. It's all included at DFS Army all the time at DFS Army. So again, hyper simplified approaches tend to work with guys that are struggling a little bit with fantasy football. So all we're going to do is show you how to create a new baseline, start your game fresh, and take off from there. You're going to add your own nuances and your own little tips and tricks and things that you learn from talking to our coaches or reading our cheat sheets or doing your own research or whatever that is. I'm just giving you a starting point that works. Now, when it comes to NFL teasers, we'll talk about those really quickly and we'll move on. I'll show you the tool. The key numbers are 7.5 to 8.5 on the favorite side, 1.5 to 2.5 on the dog side. If you can find those numbers, and if it lands on those numbers on Saturday or Sunday, you can start placing those 2 and 3 team teaser bets. You got to get the right price, though. You got to be at minus 110 or better, minus 110, even money, whatever. Usually you find minus 120. Around the industry, and that is not profitable. You're not hitting these 54% of the time. You're hitting them about 53% of the time or so. So it's a slightly profitable at minus 110. It is not profitable at minus 120. So make sure your website gives you the right price on a 2-leg teaser. And on a 3-leg teaser, you're looking for plus 150 or better. I can find some plus 160s, and on a few sites, I've found some plus 180s and beyond. And I'm focused on those sites for my bankroll growing, where I can, again, blindly push the button and know that I'm set up to win. When it comes to stacking in our domination station, we're going to be looking at on-slot stacks. We're going to be looking at trimming the player pool down to just these players. We're going to be using the NFL chalkboard, the NFL pivot tool, and a couple of these other things that are going to point us out to the ownerships of the slate-specific stuff. All the slates will have ownership this year, even the showdowns. And what we're going to do is we're going to kick down those players that should perform most often. We'll use them for our cash games and our hybrids, and then we'll throw in some wrinkles for some big GPPs. And we're going to take this NFL game to the next level so you can play in either cash games, 50-50s, head-to-heads, or you can add in 20-man leagues, 100-man leagues, triple-ups, multipliers, whatever it is you want. You can go on the great satellite chase, earn a bunch of tickets to the Millie Makers, or you can play the full-blown MME in the Millie Maker, or quarters or nickels, whatever it is you play. And you can do it all from one video. Simple, simple, simple. It's what we do. So these are the teams that are set up for teaser plays right now. Some of these will change. Some of these will go up or down half a point, and that may nullify the play. But for right now, these guys are the teams that we would be watching for week one. Box checkers, however, if I can call this number up, I don't know where it went. I don't see my little sticky note. So let me grab it really quickly. There it is. Box checkers. If I move this up here, let's put it somewhere where we can focus on it instead of sitting here looking at Missy teasing us with the teasers. Box checkers is historically proven to lead to reaching value. I've done a ton of research. Some of this was pulled from some of the great minds like Chris Raybon. Some of this from I don't know. You think of the guys 5 and 6 years ago, your Adam Levitans, Evan Silvas, Rich Rebars, these types of guys that have, I've read a lot of their articles, read a lot of their pieces, but some of these have dove in or really dug deep into finding what leads to value. And I will not necessarily show you, I guess I'll show you through the research station here in a minute. But when we're looking at a quarterback, you just can write these down, take a screenshot, whatever it is you got to do. You're looking for a home quarterback. They hit value more often than road quarterbacks. Favored quarterback, they hit more often than underdogs. 24 plus implied team total. Now that's a combination, if you don't know, of the point spread and the over-under. And I'll show you a quick way to calculate that when the time comes, but it's super, super easy. If you get an offense that is implied to score over 24 points, those quarterbacks tend to hit value more often than those underneath that number. And for some reason, there's a price point on FanDuel. $9,000. You even want them below about 85, 84, 8,500 because it gets hard to hit value when you're priced up that high. It's like a $12,000 Garrett Cole or Clayton Kershaw or Max Scherzer or whatever. It's very, very hard to hit unless they have an absolute smash performance. You're better off playing just a little bit under that number. It's not necessarily on FanDuel the cheapest you can get. On DraftKings, it can be the cheapest quarterback you can get away from because of 300-yard bonuses, 100-yard rushing bonuses, Lamar Jackson's rookie year, stuff like that. Helps those cheap quarterbacks on DraftKings more than FanDuel. On FanDuel, you just don't want to go over that $9,000 barrier very often, if at all. Running backs, again, home, favored, 24 plus implied team total. But you want volume with running backs. You want touches. 18 plus. Everybody says 20 plus. Actually, 18 is the inflection point. Targets. I don't know the number there. 2 to 3. You don't want somebody like Sony Michel who's only had 26 targets in his entire career. That's not passing game work. What that indicates is game script proof 3 down, full work horse bell cow backs. I know Derrick Henry doesn't catch a lot of passes, but he blows away the 18 touches, right? Red zone carries, especially inside the 5. A red zone carry inside the 20 is, it's okay. But generally speaking, this is another article I read. It was a CBS Sportsline article 2 years ago that broke down the fantasy scoring of running backs. And between the 20s, really and truly between the 10s, sucks. These guys don't get shit for points in between the 10s. It's outside the 10s. It's from the 10 and into the goal line that they get the points. Those backs that are used in that area that are inside the red zone, specifically inside the 10, call it the green zone, the hot zone, whatever you want to call it, those are the backs that do the damage. And those are the backs you want to focus on. So you'll be able to look in our research station at inside the 5 carries, and those are going to tell you which backs to focus on. If you've got a shifty committee where somebody runs between the 20s and then somebody else punches it in, aka Warwick Dunn, Mike Allstott back in the day, things like that, that very clearly points out to you that the guy being used up in between the 20s doesn't very often accumulate a ton of points in value, especially if he's overpriced. Wide receiver does not do the home and favored thing, and wide receiver is a very easy one to see why. Garbage time. You either want a shootout, which is the over 27 implied team total. There's an inflection point there. Over 27 implied team total. Those wide receivers typically have better days. Under 18 implied team total, you get a real crappy, giant underdog, crappy offense. That's when your Jaguars come into play, your Bengals sometimes, your, who else was really, the Jets, when they've got a possession type receiver. Why? Because these teams get garbage time, and garbage time helps a wide receiver way more than it helps quarterback. There was a Blake Bortles thing a few years ago. Everybody jumped on board and it worked. It's fine, but it doesn't sustain itself because honestly, the receiver gets 10 points, it gets 1 point per 10 yards and gets all of the PPR, half point, full point, whatever type of stuff, right? That guy goes 70 yards on 7 catches, and he's got you basically 14 points. Whereas the quarterback gets you about 3 points for those 75 yards and nothing for the receptions. He gets you like 3 points. If he scores a touchdown, that's a 20-point drive for the receiver, and it's about an 8-point, 9-point drive for the quarterback. You're going to get a lot more bang for your buck on those wide receivers, and that's why that 18 implied team total number is so critical. 8+ targets per game is hard to find. You usually find 7 red zone targets, especially inside the 10 again. That matters. Tight ends. Home and favored matters again. I don't know why, but home tight ends tend to do better. Favored tight ends tend to do better. Of course, high-scoring games, implied team totals over 24. Why? Because then they spread the love. You want the dominant tight ends, but if you're punting a tight end, you want one that's home, favored, and implied to score a lot of points because there might be a little love that's spread around. And if I've already thrown 3 touchdowns to this and this and this receiver, they dump one off to a tight end as a little bit of a trick play, and boom, he scores. That happens more at home. It happens more when they're favored. It happens more when they're scoring a lot of points than it does when you're just some little schlep sitting over there in underdog land doing nothing. 8+ targets, again, they're hard to find. 6+ is a number that you can usually find. Red zone targets, again, goes without saying. Defense is one of my favorite things to talk about when it comes to daily fantasy sports because most people say, why would I pay up? Why would I whatever? I'm telling you, if you just follow these parameters right here, over a 6-point favorite, God forbid you find one over 10 points. That's an inflection point. Again, it leads to value more often than not. Under 18, like you can take under 20, you can take under 22 for the opponent's implied team score. Okay, but if you can find a team, and you'll find them, that are 10-point favorites and the opponent is supposed to only score about 14 points, that is a smash spot. I don't care what the defense's price is. I'm going to use it because it actually pays off quite a bit. Even at the why would you pay $5,000 for a defense? Well, when you're paying $3,000 for a defense or $5,000, the difference is only $2,000. If you're paying $6,000 for a running back or $10,000 for a running back, the difference is $4,000. You're actually paying for, there's not as much of a spread in defense as there is at the other positions from top to bottom. From the most expensive to the least expensive is often a much, much bigger spread at running back, wide receiver, even tight end than it is at defense. So you're actually not spending a larger percentage of your salary on a higher priced defense. Now, I don't do it all the time. I look for the cheapest viable defense that meets these criteria as closely as I can. And I play that defense. I don't want to spend any money on them either. But if I have to, I will. Most people will go to punt. I will spend up. And oftentimes, I'm going to get some value out of my defense while other people just punt and get rid of it and then go for some running back or wide receiver that has a bad day. So, in a nutshell, that's what we're going to look at real quickly. If I dive into the research station, it's going to look different this year. But I just want to show you where some of the stats are for these quarterbacks. If we look at the Vegas lines, there's your team total number. Okay, and there's your point spread. And you come over here a little bit more and you can find all the statistics that you want to find from air yards to DVP, basically, all that kind of stuff. Running back matchups, same thing. You're looking at home. Home teams were in yellow right there. And then you can look over here and see the team totals and the Vegas spread for your favored and your over 24 ITT quarterbacks or running backs. But you come over here to the 2020 stats, and this is where you're going to find your rushing attempts. That's your touches. You're going to find your targets over here, which is your passing game work. You're going to slide all the way over here to the red zone numbers, and you're going to find your inside the 10s and inside the 5 type numbers for rushing and receiving. When you come over here to the wide receiver matchups, it's the same exact thing. You're just looking at the basics of this. You can look at all this other stuff if you want to throughout the week, but you're going to be focused on things like inside the 10 targets for wide receivers. And you're going to be focused on, obviously, targets per game and receptions and maybe even some air yards or whatever it is. And your tight ends are going to do the exact same thing. But with your Vegas numbers, you get your team totals and your spreads again for your home and your favorite. You come over here for your targets. And you come over here for your red zone numbers and see who's getting used inside the 20 and most importantly, who's getting used inside the 10. This is a quick process that we can just go boom, 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 boom. Knock them out based on these parameters right here. And you cut your player pool down to all of those that don't stand much of a chance that should be left for tournaments and GPPs or whatever. You would use these guys here that fit these requirements. The more boxes they check, the more secure of a play they are, the more you should be inclined to use them in your cash games, especially if they hit high on the chalkboard. And that'll be the next tool that we cover here down the road. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction, a little bit of a taste of what's coming for NFL 2021. Pile in, like, subscribe to the video, use the coupon code DFSARMY, get that 10% off discount, become a VIP today. We will help you win. It's that simple. Come on in, say hi to me. Peace out, homies, and we'll talk to you very, very soon.